Part 1, The Stranger. The afternoon sun filtered through the old oak trees, casting long shafts of light across the Miller Ranch in rural Montana. Ethan Miller, 28, wiped sweat from his brow as he set down the last bucket. Another day's work was over, another long day in the relentless struggle to save his three-generation family farm. For the past 2 years, since his father died and left him with a massive debt, Ethan had worked tirelessly to keep the land. The 40 acres with a few dairy cows, chickens, and a small vegetable patch weren't much compared to the massive industrial farms that were slowly devouring the area, but they were all he had. His calloused fingers and sore back testified to his dedication. The chilly October wind made Ethan pull his worn jacket closer as he walked toward the small cabin. The floorboards creaked under his muddy boots. Inside, the simple kitchen with its old pine table and a few mismatched chairs had become familiar to the point of boredom. An old laptop sat on the table, the only luxury he allowed himself, mainly for keeping track of the farm's finances and occasionally reading the local news. 6 more months, he muttered as he opened the laptop. Just 6 more months. That was the time he'd given himself to figure out how to pay off the bank loan that was coming due. If he didn't succeed, he'd be the last Miller to own the land. Ethan sighed. He was saving every penny, working himself to the bone, but it never seemed like enough. Over the past few months, he'd turned down invitations from his few remaining friends, given up all his hobbies, even cut down on 1 meal a day. The loneliness and worry weighed as heavily on his broad shoulders as the farm itself. Outside the window, the sky was starting to turn a deep purple as dusk fell. Ethan was about to close his laptop to prepare a simple dinner when a strange noise from the barn caught his attention. The sound was soft, barely audible, but in the silence of the deserted farm, it stood out like thunder. Ethan reached for his father's flashlight and shotgun, not that he liked violence, but the theft of farm equipment was on the rise in the area. He couldn't afford to lose any more. The old barn, about 100 yards from the main house, was the largest building on the farm. Ethan hadn't kept a horse in a long time, he couldn't afford one, but he kept it clean and used it to store tools and some hay. The barn door was ajar, which he definitely wouldn't have left it that way. "Who's there?" Ethan called, his voice echoing in the dark. "I called the police," he lied, hoping to scare off any intruders. There was no answer, but a soft breath and rustling came from a haystack in the far corner. Ethan pointed his flashlight in the direction of the sound. The light illuminated the face of a young woman huddled in the hay. She looked to be in her mid-20s, with long black hair matted from mud and rain, her face streaked with dust. Her simple clothes, jeans, a t-shirt, and a jean jacket, were in a similar state. She squinted against the flashlight beam, raising her arms to shield her face. "Please," she said, her voice hoarse. "I don't mean any harm." Ethan lowered his gun immediately. "What are you doing in my stable?" I just need a place to rest." She tried to sit up, but stumbled and fell back into the haystack. "I'll be right back, it's just I've been walking all day." Ethan moved closer, the flashlight beam revealing that the girl's shoes were completely unsuitable for hiking, her canvas sneakers were torn in several places, soaked and dirty. Her ankles were red and swollen, and there were scratches on her hands. "Where are you from?" he asked, his voice soft. Though the bank might be about to take his farm, his parents had never taught him to refuse to help someone in need. "Chicago," she replied, then quickly added, "I'm traveling, want to see the country. The last bus dropped me off in a town about 15 miles away, I think. I was planning on walking to the next hotel, but I didn't think it would be this far." Ethan sneered. "You're in the middle of rural Montana. The nearest hotel is at least 25 miles away." He focused his flashlight more closely. Despite her filth and exhaustion, this girl was clearly no ordinary homeless person. There was something in the way she talked, and the intelligent and alert look in her eyes even when tired. "I'm Ethan Miller," he said, determined to clear the air. "This is my farm." The girl hesitated for a moment before answering, "I'm Alex Johnson." Though the girl's name sounded fake, Ethan didn't press the issue. Everyone had their own secrets. You look like you need some food and rest, Alex. Ethan turned off his flashlight and held out his hand. I could offer that. There's not much on this farm, but we don't let strangers sleep in the stables. Alex looked at him suspiciously. I don't have any money. I was robbed at the bus stop. Took my wallet, my phone, everything. I'm not asking for money, Ethan replied. I just can't let a woman sleep in the stables when the temperature is about to drop below zero. My mother would come back from the dead and beat me up if she did. After a moment's hesitation, Alex took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. She stumbled as her feet hit the ground. Can I lean on you? She asked, her voice almost a whisper. Of course, Ethan replied, wrapping his arm around her shoulders to steady her. He tried not to notice the faint scent she emitted, some expensive scent still lingering beneath the dust. They walked slowly toward the house, Ethan matching Alex's slow pace. Though he had many questions, he kept quiet. Whoever she was and whatever she was running from, tonight she was just a stranger in need. What Ethan didn't know was that the arrival of Alexandra Blackwood, the only daughter of tech billionaire Richard Blackwood and heiress to a multi-billion-dollar tech empire, would change his life forever. Part 2, The First Secrets. Alexandra Blackwood wasn't always a billionaire heiress on the run. Until 2 weeks ago, she was the CEO of the Blackwood Foundation, the most successful young charity she had founded 5 years earlier with the help of her father's fortune. Under her leadership, the foundation had provided millions of dollars to sustainable development projects in rural areas across the United States. But everything changed when she discovered documents proving that Vincent Harrow, the foundation's CFO and her fiancé, had laundered money through the foundation. Not only that, he had used the foundation's reputation to gain access to vulnerable rural communities and then secretly buy their land at rock-bottom prices through a series of shell companies. When Alex confronted Vincent, instead of denying it, he laughed and asked her to join him. Honey, this is business. We can make 10 times what your foundation makes. No one cares about those poor farmers. Alex left that night, taking the USB with all the evidence. But she quickly realized that Vincent had more influence than she thought. Her bank accounts were frozen for suspected fraud. Her credit cards were locked. Her apartment was broken into. And men in black suits started showing up everywhere she went. Which is why Alexandra Blackwood, who Forbes called a billionaire with a conscience, was now sitting on an old wooden chair in a Montana farmer's small kitchen, swallowing spoonfuls of homemade chicken soup like it was the best food she'd ever tasted. Thanks, she said as Ethan poured more soup into her bowl. I don't remember the last time I was this hungry. Ethan smiled and sat down across from her. If you don't mind, why is a city girl traveling alone through rural Montana in October? Alex swallowed a bite of bread, thinking about her answer. She couldn't tell him the truth, not because she didn't trust him, but because the less people knew about her, the safer they were. I needed a change of pace, she replied, not entirely lying. Office work, city life, it gets too stuffy sometimes. So you decided to wander the Montana countryside without a decent coat? Ethan asked, raising an eyebrow. Alex looked down, feeling her cheeks heat up. I said I was robbed. That's right, Ethan nodded, not pursuing the matter. You can use my phone to call someone, if you need to. No. Alex answered so quickly that Ethan raised an eyebrow. I mean, no need. I'll contact my friends when I get to the next town. They can send me money. Ethan nodded slowly, obviously not entirely believing her, but he didn't press the issue. I can take you to town tomorrow. I need to get there to pick up some supplies anyway. Alex considered the offer. Town meant people, and people meant the risk of being recognized. But she couldn't hide here forever, and she needed to contact the only lawyer she trusted. Thanks, that's great, she said. Ethan got up to clear the dishes. You can sleep in the living room. I'll bring down the blankets and pillows. The bathroom's down the hall if you want to shower. I don't want to be a bother. Not at all, Ethan interrupted, his voice soft but firm. You need to rest. We'll take care of everything in the morning. Alex nodded gratefully, suddenly feeling the full weight of the past 2 weeks fall from her shoulders. She'd been running, hiding, afraid. Now, for the first time, she felt safe. It was funny, thinking back, feeling safest in a total stranger's house in the middle of Montana. After a quick shower, Alex sat on the old sofa in the living room that Ethan had made into a makeshift bed. The room was simple, with a few family photos on the wall and an old television. There was no sign of luxury, but there was an undeniable coziness to the space, a sense of real home that she rarely felt in her luxurious apartment in Chicago. Ethan walked in, carrying a folded set of clothes. "Here's my t-shirt and pants. They'll be too big for you, but at least they'll be clean." "Thanks," Alex said, taking the clothes. "For all intents and purposes. Most people wouldn't open their doors to a stranger like me." "Most people don't live in the country," Ethan shrugged. "Here, we look out for each other. Maybe that's all we have left." There was a sadness in his voice that intrigued Alex. "Do you live here alone?" "Yes. My father died 2 years ago. My mother died when I was little." "I'm sorry." "It's been a while," he said, but his eyes said otherwise. "Anyway, I should let you rest. Good night, Alex, if that's your real name." Alex was startled. "Why do you say that?" Ethan smiled, without any hint of anger or doubt. "Because you hesitated before saying your name. And because people who wear Louboutins, even when they're dirty beyond recognition, don't usually call themselves Alex Johnson." He glanced down at her shoes lying beside the sofa. Though most of them were covered in mud, the distinctive red soles were still visible. "I don't care who you are or what you're running from," he continued, seeing her panicked expression. "I just thought you should know that you're not as good at faking as you think you are." With that, he walked out of the room, leaving Alex to her chaotic thoughts. Sleep came easier than she expected, wrapped around a pillow that smelled of simple laundry detergent and another scent, of sun and wind and honesty, a scent she couldn't name. Part 3, A New Day at the Farm. Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, waking Alex. For a moment, she had no idea where she was. Then it all came rushing back: Vincent, the money laundering, the escape, and finally meeting this kind farmer. She sat up and listened. The house was quiet, but she could hear noises from outside: roosters crowing, a distant cow mooing, and the clanking of metal. She glanced at the clock on the wall. 6:30 a.m. Ethan had obviously been up for a long time. Alex put on her clothes, washed and dry, she realized with grateful surprise, and went outside to find the owner of the house. The morning air was chilly, but surprisingly fresh. She had never really breathed air this fresh in Chicago. She found Ethan mending a fence near the barn. Dressed in a simple t-shirt and jeans, with an old baseball cap worn backward, he fit right in with the farm scene. His muscles bulged beneath the fabric as he hammered nails into the fence posts. Alex found herself staring longer than necessary. "Morning," she called, moving closer. Ethan looked up and smiled, a genuine smile reaching his eyes. "Morning. Did you sleep well?" "Better than I thought you would," Alex admitted. "Can I help? I feel bad about you doing all the work while I sleep." Ethan seemed surprised by the offer. "Do you know anything about farming?" "Absolutely not," Alex admitted, grinning. "But I'm a quick learner. And I'm not afraid of hard work." Ethan studied her for a moment, as if assessing whether she was serious. Then he nodded. "Okay, you can feed the chickens if you want. The feed is in the bin next to the coop. Just sprinkle some on the ground." Alex nodded enthusiastically and headed for the coop. It was a simple task, but she felt a strange sense of pride when she completed it. Ethan then showed her how to collect the eggs, a task she found quite enjoyable, although one particularly aggressive hen pecked her hand 3 times. The morning passed in a series of small tasks Ethan assigned her. None of them were particularly difficult, but by noon, Alex's body ached in a way she'd never experienced before. Even expensive gym sessions with a personal trainer in Chicago hadn't prepared her for this kind of actual physical work. "We should have lunch," Ethan said as they finished repairing a small section of the porch. Then I can drive you into town. Alex nodded, but felt a strange sense of anxiety. Coming to town meant the possibility of being recognized, which meant danger. And what was even stranger, she felt reluctant to leave this small farm and its calm owner. On her way home, Alex happened to notice a stack of letters on the kitchen table. The top envelope bore the logo of the First Montana National Bank and was stamped "Final Notice" in red ink. Ethan quickly grabbed the stack and placed it in a drawer, but not fast enough for her to see it. Lunch was simple: sandwiches and coffee. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, until Alex couldn't contain her curiosity any longer. "Ethan, are you having financial trouble?" Ethan stopped chewing, her face hardening. "Why do you ask?" "I saw the letter from the bank," she admitted. "I didn't mean to look, but I saw the words 'Final Notice.'" Ethan put down his sandwich, his green eyes darkening. "That's none of your business." "I know," Alex said softly. "But maybe I can help." "With what?" "Your money was taken, remember?" There was a bitterness in his voice she'd never heard before. Alex bit her lip. She wanted to tell the truth, that she could write a check that would save his farm and not even think about it. But that would reveal her identity, and she wasn't ready to do that yet. "I'm sorry," she said instead. "I didn't mean to offend." Ethan sighed, his expression softening. "No, I should be the one apologizing. I shouldn't be so snappy." He paused, as if considering, then continued, "But yes, I'm in trouble. This farm is in danger. My father took out a huge loan to expand before he died, and now the bank is calling for the money. I have 6 months to figure out how to pay it back, or I'll lose everything." "I'm sorry," Alex said, and she meant it. Strangely, part of her felt angry for this man she barely knew. "Any plans?" Ethan shook his head. "I tried everything. Expanding production, finding side jobs in town, cutting expenses to the bare minimum. It's not enough. A small farm like this can't compete with today's big industrial farms." "But this is your family land." "Yes. 3 generations of millers have lived and worked this land." Ethan looked out the window at the rolling fields. "That's why I can't give up. I owe them that." Alex knew the feeling all too well. She, too, was fighting to protect her father's legacy, a legacy that Vincent was trying to turn into something dirty and greedy. "Have you ever thought about going organic?" she asked. "There's a big market for clean, sustainably grown food." Ethan looked at her with new curiosity. "You know anything about farming?" Alex shrugged. "I've worked on some rural development projects." It wasn't exactly a lie. "I've thought about it," Ethan admitted. "But the certification process is expensive, and I'd need to invest in new equipment. Where's the money to get started?" "There are grants," Alex said, her mind racing with the programs her foundation had funded. "And government programs to help convert to organic farming. I've looked into them. Too much paperwork, too many middlemen. And too long a wait. I don't have 6 months to wait for approval." Alex nodded, understanding the problem. She'd spent years trying to streamline these processes through her foundation, but there were still too many bureaucratic hurdles. "Anyway," Ethan said, clearly wanting to change the subject, "we should hit the road if we want to get back before dark. I need to pick up some supplies, and you need to contact your friends." Alex nodded, though she was still unsure about going to town. "You don't have to take me home. I can stay and help around the farm." Ethan looked at her in surprise. "You don't want to go? I thought you wanted to contact your friends to help you." "I do," Alex said, quickly thinking of an explanation. "But I also want to repay you for your kindness. You gave me a place to stay, food, at least I can help around the farm before I leave." Ethan looked at her suspiciously. "This isn't a 5-star resort, you know. No room charges." "I know. But I really want to help." Ethan was silent for a moment, then shrugged. "Okay. But we still need to get to town. I need some parts for the tractor and a few other things." You can come along, help carry the stuff, and we can come back later. Alex felt her anxiety rising, but she knew she couldn't avoid it forever. And she needed to find a way to contact her lawyer. Okay. Part 4, Small Town, Big Trouble. The town of Willow Creek, Montana looked exactly like Alex expected a small western town to look like, a main street lined with shops, an old gas station, a diner, and a general store that took up one corner. Everything felt a little shabby but well kept, as if time ran slower here. Ethan's old pickup truck lurched as he pulled up in front of Wilson's Hardware. I need some stuff here, he said. Then we can stop by the grocery store, and if you need to use your phone, we can go to the coffee shop, they have Wi-Fi. Alex nodded, still feeling nervous. She'd pulled Ethan's cap down low and put on her sunglasses, hoping no one would recognize her. The chances of anyone in Willow Creek, Montana recognizing Alexandra Blackwood were slim, but she couldn't risk it. Wilson's Hardware was a small but well-stocked store. An older man with a silver beard covering his face stood behind the counter. He smiled when he saw Ethan. Hello, Ethan. Nice to meet you, he said. And you brought a friend. Hello, Mr. Wilson, Ethan nodded. This is Alex. She's traveling through the area. Mr. Wilson smiled warmly at Alex. Welcome to Willow Creek, miss. Not many tourists visit us this time of year. Thank you, Alex said, trying not to let his voice betray too much. This is a lovely town. Ethan, do you need help finding anything? Mr. Wilson asked. I need some parts for my old tractor, Ethan replied, and the two men began a technical conversation that Alex didn't understand at all. She wandered around the store, looking at the tools and equipment. It was all so practical, so useful. Nothing fancy or superfluous. It was a far cry from her life in Chicago, where everything was designed to impress rather than serve a purpose. A small TV on a shelf behind the counter caught her eye. It was playing a local news channel, the volume low. Alex froze as she saw her own face appear on the screen. Still searching for Alexandra Blackwood, heiress to Blackwood Technologies and CEO of the Blackwood Foundation, after she disappeared 2 weeks ago. Vincent Harrow, CFO of the foundation and Blackwood's fiancé, has said the family is concerned about her mental health. A photo of Vincent appeared on the screen, handsome, dark-haired, wearing an expensive suit and a charming smile that Alex now knew was fate. He was standing before a group of reporters, looking worried. Alexandra has been under a lot of stress lately, Vincent's voice said. She made some crazy accusations about the company and withdrew a large amount of money from the trust before she disappeared. We just want her home safe and to get the help she needs. Alex felt anger boiling inside her. That bastard was making things up. He was trying to make her out to be crazy and a criminal. Reports indicate that Blackwood may have been seen in various locations across the Midwest, and authorities are asking the public to remain vigilant. She is described as 5 feet 7 inches, with long black hair, and may be in a state of confusion. Alex? Are you okay? Ethan's voice pulled her out of her panic. He was standing next to her, holding a tool bag, his expression filled with concern. She swallowed. Yeah, I'm fine. Just a little dizzy. We should get you out for some fresh air, Ethan said, placing his hand on her elbow. Thanks, Mr. Wilson. See you next week. Bye, kids. The old man called after her, but Alex barely heard him as Ethan led her out of the shop. Once outside, Alex took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. Ethan was watching her intently. Vincent Harrow, he said, his voice calm. That's the guy you're running from, right? Alex raised her head, shocked. How did you? I saw the news, Ethan said. And I saw your reaction. But that's not all. He looked around to make sure no one was near, then said softly, I recognized you when you walked into my stables, Alexandra Blackwood. Alex felt as if the ground were shifting beneath her feet. You know? I read the papers, I watch the news, Ethan said. I may live in the country, but I don't live under a rock. Her face has been everywhere for the past 2 weeks. Why didn't you say anything? Alex whispered, feeling both scared and strangely relieved. Because it's none of my business, Ethan replied simply. You're obviously running away for some reason, and I think you'll tell me when you're ready. He paused. But right now, we need to get you out of the public eye. If I recognize you, someone else might. As if to confirm his fears, the door of a nearby convenience store opened and a middle-aged woman stepped out, staring at Alex with a look of gradual recognition on her face. Hey, you're not, the woman began. No, you're wrong, Ethan interrupted, quickly leading Alex to his pickup. We have to go. Bye. They quickly got in, Ethan starting the car and driving away before the woman could say anything more. Alex glanced in the rearview mirror, seeing the woman take out her phone. You need to tell me what's going on, Ethan said as they left town. Now. Alex looked at the man beside her, a stranger until yesterday, but one who had given her shelter, food, and now helped her escape. She owed him the truth. Vincent is trying to take my fund, she said, her voice shaking but firm. He's been using it to launder money and defraud farmers all over the country. I have the proof on a USB stick. When I confronted him, he tried to make me look crazy. He froze my accounts, ruined my reputation, and now he's trying to find me. Ethan was silent for a moment, absorbing the information. And why does he want to find you? Because of the evidence I have. And because I'm the only one who can stop him from taking complete control of my father's fund and assets. Vincent Harrow is a dangerous man, Ethan said, his voice strained. I've read about him. He has powerful connections. You don't know everything, Alex said, remembering the men in black suits who had followed her. I need to contact my lawyer. She's the only one I can trust right now. You can't call from Willow Creek anymore, Ethan said. We need to get to a bigger town, where you can hide better. He thought for a moment. Great Falls is about a 2-hour drive away. We can get there, you can contact your lawyer, and we can be back at the ranch before dark. You still want to help me? After knowing I'm in this much trouble? Ethan looked at her, his green eyes steady. You're in trouble because you're trying to do the right thing. I respect that. Alex didn't know what to say. After 2 weeks of being hunted, treated like a criminal and a lunatic, she'd finally found someone who believed in her. Thank you, she said simply. They had been driving for about 15 minutes when Alex noticed a black SUV following them. Ethan, she said, her voice strained. The car behind us. Ethan glanced at the rearview mirror. It could be a coincidence. Turn onto the next side street, Alex said. See if they follow. Ethan did, turning onto a dirt road. The SUV followed. Damn, Ethan muttered, accelerating. How did they find us so fast? That woman in town, Alex said. She must have called someone. Vincent put a bounty on you, Ethan said. I saw it on the news. The SUV was starting to follow. Ethan tightened his grip on the wheel. I know these roads, he said. They don't. That's our only advantage. With a sudden movement, he turned off the main road onto a narrow trail that Alex hadn't even recognized as a road until they were on it. The pickup shook violently as they crossed the rough terrain. Hold on. Ethan yelled as they crossed a small ditch, the tires kicking up mud. Alex gripped the handrail, heart pounding. The SUV was still following, but was having a much harder time in this terrain. Their vehicle wasn't designed for real trails like this, unlike Ethan's old but reliable pickup. Here. Ethan abruptly turned into an unexpected open space, a wide grassy field with a forest in the distance. He drove across the field, straight into the trees. What are you doing? Alex asked, his voice strained. Trust me, Ethan said, not slowing down. As they reached the edge of the woods, he turned sharply right and followed the tree line. Then he found what he was looking for, a small clearing in the tall pines, just wide enough for their pickup to fit through. He dove into it, cutting the engine as they disappeared behind the first few trees. "Get down," he whispered. They ducked as the black SUV roared across the field, clearly following their trail. But due to the angle and speed, the pursuers didn't see where Ethan had turned into the woods. They continued straight into the woods beyond, disappearing from sight. "They think we've continued through the woods," Ethan explained. "It'll be a while before they realize we're going the wrong way." "You're brilliant," Alex said, relieved. "Growing up here has its advantages," Ethan said, smiling nervously. "But we can't stay here long. When they realize they've lost us, they'll come back. So what do? We can't go to Great Falls anymore. It's too risky to stay on the main road." Ethan thought for a moment. "We need to take a detour back to the ranch. I know old forest roads that hardly anyone uses anymore." "So what? I can't hide out on your ranch forever." "No, we can't," Ethan agreed. "But at least we can come up with a plan. And you need to contact your lawyer." He pulled out his phone. "I have a satellite phone for emergencies. The reception isn't great, but it works. And more importantly, it can't be tracked like a regular cell phone." Alex looked at the man beside her with new gratitude. "You're a surprise, Ethan Miller." "A farmer has to be versatile," he said, a smile flickering. "Now, call your lawyer. We don't have much time." Part 5, The Plan and the Confession. "We can't go back to the ranch," Alex said after ending the call with his lawyer, Sofia Rivera. "That's the first place they'll look." Ethan nodded, tapping his fingers on the steering wheel as he thought. They had moved from their original hideout and were now parked on a remote forestry road, surrounded by towering pine trees that shielded them from prying eyes above. "So what does your lawyer say?" he asked. "Sofia says she's built a solid case against Vincent. She can prove he's behind the shell companies that are buying up farmland across the Midwest. She just needs the evidence from my thumb drive to complete her case." Alex rubbed his eyes tiredly. "She's setting up a closed-door meeting with the Justice Department next week, but I need to get the evidence there." "And Vincent knows this?" "He knows I have the evidence. That's why he's been so desperate to get me. If he gets the thumb drive before I can turn it over to the authorities, he'll get away with it," Ethan concluded, frowning. "So what's the plan now?" Alex took a deep breath. "Sofia will meet us in Helena tomorrow. From there, she'll escort me to Seattle to meet the federal investigators. But first, we have to get to Helena safely." "Helena is about 3 hours away," Ethan said, checking the map on his phone. "We can't take the main road. Vincent's people will be watching. Do you know of another route?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Yes. There are side roads and forest roads we can use. It'll take longer, maybe 6 or 7 hours instead of 3, but it'll be much safer." Alex thought about it, then nodded. "Should we go now?" "No, it's too risky to travel during the day. They're looking for us." Ethan looked at his watch. "It's 3 in the afternoon. We'll wait until it gets dark, around 8, and then leave. We'll get to Helena early in the morning." "But where are we going to be for the next few hours?" Alex asked. "We can't just sit here." "There's a cabin," Ethan said after a moment of silence. "It belonged to my uncle before he died. It's deep in the woods, about a half-hour's drive from here. I still have the keys. No one knows about it except me." "Sounds perfect," Alex said, relieved. "Ethan, I don't even know how to thank you." Ethan just nodded and started the car. "No need. Sometimes doing the right thing is enough." They drove in silence for most of the way, weaving through winding forest roads that Alex was sure she would never find on her own. Eventually, they came to a narrow, barely recognizable trail among the pine trees. Ethan pulled off the road and drove about a half-mile, stopping in front of a small log cabin nestled in the trees. "Here we are," he said. "Nothing fancy, but it'll get us some cover." The cabin was basic, a main room with a kitchen and living room, a small bedroom, and a simple bathroom. Dust covered everything, but structurally it was in good shape. My uncle used to come here to hunt and fish, Ethan explained as he opened the window to let in some air. But he died 5 years ago. I still come here occasionally, to get away from it all. Alex looked around, appreciating the quiet and isolation of the place. That makes sense. This place is pretty peaceful. Ethan rummaged through the cupboards and pulled out a few cans. Not a fancy dinner, but it'll get us through the night. They made a simple meal of canned beans and meat, eating in comfortable silence. The room was lit only by oil lamps, giving it a strangely warm, intimate feel. I don't understand, Alex finally said. Why are you helping me so much? You don't even know me. Ethan considered the question for a moment, his green eyes reflecting the firelight. Maybe because I know what it's like to fight against people with too much power. I fought the bank for 2 years, trying to save the farm. It was a fight I was losing. He looked down at his plate. When I saw you in that barn, I didn't know who you were. But I saw you in trouble, needing help. And when I found out who you were and what you were fighting, I don't know. Maybe I thought if I helped you win your fight, then somehow at least one of us would defeat the monsters. Alex felt something warm spread inside him. You're a good guy, Ethan Miller. Not everyone does what you do. Maybe that's the problem with the world, he said, looking her straight in the eye. Not enough people do the right thing when it's hard. A moment of silence passed between them, an undeniable connection forming. Alex felt her heart rate increase. Ethan broke it first, standing up to collect the plates. You should get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. What about you? I'll sleep here, on the sofa, he said, nodding toward the old chair in the corner. Your bedroom. Alex wanted to protest, but she could see there was no way she could convince him. Thanks, she said simply. As she was about to enter the bedroom, Alex paused at the door. Ethan? If this all ends well. If I win. I want to help you with the farm. Ethan shook his head. I'm not helping you for anything in return. I know. That's why I want to help. She hesitated, then continued, my foundation is about sustainable rural development. We help small farms like yours convert to organic farming, find markets for their produce, increase profits. That's the whole reason I'm fighting Vincent, because he's destroying what the foundation stands for. I don't need charity, Ethan said, his voice hard. That's not charity, Alex replied. That's investing. Investing in people like you, people who know how to care for the land, people who understand the value of doing things right. The world needs more of those people. Ethan said nothing for a long moment. Finally, he just nodded. We'll talk about that after I get you safely to Helena. Alex smiled slightly. That's the deal. She hesitated for another moment. Good night, Ethan. Good night, Alexandra. For the first time in days, she didn't correct someone when they called her by her full name. Part 6, The Night Road. They left the cabin at 8 o'clock as planned. The moon was only partly up, providing enough light to see but not so bright that they would be easily spotted. Ethan drove with his headlights low as they made their way over the rough roads. We'll stay on these roads for as long as possible, he explained. Eventually we'll get on the highway, but only when we're close to Helena. Alex nodded, clutching the valuable USB in his pocket. Do you think they've given up on us? No, Ethan said flatly. They know you're somewhere in the area. They'll still be looking. He glanced at her. But we have the advantage. I know these roads. They don't. They drove in silence for an hour, Ethan concentrating on navigating the rough terrain, Alex following the map on his sat phone. Suddenly, Ethan stopped the car. Something's wrong, he whispered, cutting the engine. What? Alex started to ask, but Ethan motioned for her to be quiet. They sat there, completely silent, listening. And then Alex heard it, the distant hum of an engine. Not just one car, but several. How do they know? She whispered, panicked. They don't know exactly, Ethan said, his voice strained. They're searching. The way they're moving, they're scanning the area, splitting into groups. What do we do now? Ethan studied the map, his eyes narrowing as he thought. We have to get out of the car, he said finally. What? Driving at night on these roads is too easy to spot. A car in the woods, making noise, making lights, they'll find us. He pointed to the map. There's an old railroad track about 2 miles from here. It leads to a little town called Clearwater. From there, we can catch a bus to Helena. We have to walk? Alex asked, not hiding the skepticism in his voice. 2 miles. Flat ground, mostly. Ethan reached for his pack from the back seat. I always keep a survival kit in the car. Flashlight, water, some snacks. We won't get lost. Alex considered their options. The sound of the engine was getting closer. Okay, she said. On foot. They left the car, Ethan hiding it from view by covering it with branches. Then, guided by the compass and the flicker of a carefully shielded flashlight, they set off into the woods. Walking through the woods at night was an experience Alex had never had before, and one she wasn't sure she wanted to repeat. Every sound was amplified, every shadow seemed to be moving. But Ethan moved with an easy confidence, never stopping to reorient himself, always knowing where to put his feet. You've done this before, she whispered when they stopped for a drink. You mean hiding from bad guys in the woods at night? He asked, a smile playing on his lips. Not exactly. But I spent most of my childhood exploring these woods. I know them like the back of my hand. Alex appreciated his confidence, but she couldn't help but wonder if they could actually escape their trackers. Vincent's men were no novices. They had the resources, the technology, and the drive. After about an hour of walking, Ethan suddenly stopped, holding up a hand to silence Alex. She stood still, her heart pounding. Human sounds, he whispered, barely audible. Up ahead. They moved silently off the trail, hidden behind thick bushes. A few minutes later, the flashlight beam cut through the darkness, and 2 men in black appeared. They were talking on walkie-talkies. No sign in the north area. Moving east as directed. Confirmed. Stay in touch. Make sure she's alive. Boss wants that USB. Alex felt a chill run down her spine. They knew about USBs. How could that be? Then she remembered. She'd mentioned it when she talked to Sophia on Ethan's satellite phone. If someone was listening. The 2 men passed by without noticing them, the footsteps fading away. Alex and Ethan waited another 5 minutes before daring to move. They're looking everywhere, Alex whispered, his voice shaking. We'll have to change our plans, Ethan said, thinking quickly. They'll check the bus stations, and maybe the trains. We can't get to Clearwater. So how do we get to Helena? Ethan thought for a moment. We need another car. And I know where we can borrow one. Alex raised an eyebrow. Borrow? My friend Jake Thompson lives about 3 miles away. He owes me a favor. And he's not one to ask questions. You trust him? With my life, Ethan said without hesitation. He hates people in power as much as I do. He'll help us. They changed course, heading southwest now. The journey took longer than Ethan had anticipated, largely because they had to stop and hide whenever they heard people or vehicles. Apparently, Vincent had mobilized a miniature army to search for them. After nearly 3 hours of intense walking, they reached a small clearing with a modest cabin and a large barn. There were no lights. Wait here, Ethan whispered, directing Alex to a bush. I'll see if Jake's home. Alex waited anxiously as Ethan snuck up to the cabin. He knocked on the door in a special rhythmic code. After a moment, the door opened, and a tall man with a bushy beard emerged. Ethan and the man spoke quietly for a minute, then the man nodded and disappeared into the cabin. Ethan waved Alex over. Jake's going to help us, he said as she reached him. He said we could use his old truck. And he has some important information. They entered the cabin, where Jake Thompson, a large man with a rough face but kind eyes, was boiling water. He nodded to Alex but didn't ask her name. "The news isn't great," Jake said as he set 3 cups of coffee on the table. "They've closed off most of the main roads leading to Helena. Set up checkpoints. Checking every car." "How can they do that?" Alex asked. "They're not the police. They have money," Jake said simply. "And in remote areas like this, sometimes money speaks louder than the law." "So how do we get to Helena?" Ethan asked. Jake studied an old map spread out on the table. "There's a route, an old road that hardly anyone uses anymore. It goes through some federal land, technically off limits, but I've used it for years. It'll take you east of Helena, away from all the checkpoints." "Is it dangerous?" Ethan asked. "Not as dangerous as getting caught by men in suits," Jake replied. "But it's a tough road. You'll need a good car." He tossed Ethan a set of keys. "My truck will take you there. It's full of gas." "Thanks, Jake," Ethan said, his voice sincere. "I'll return it." "Make sure you do," Jake said, but he didn't sound particularly worried. He turned to Alex. "You must be special, you know? Ethan's not the type to risk his life for anyone." Alex didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. "You guys should get going," Jake said, looking at his watch. "You'll want to get the toughest part of the trail over before dawn." As they prepared to leave, Jake pulled Ethan aside and said something so quietly that Alex couldn't hear. Ethan nodded solemnly, patted his friend on the shoulder, and turned back to Alex. "Ready?" "As ready as I can be," she replied. Jake's truck was old but well maintained, a Ford F-150 with off-road tires and a raised chassis. It wasn't the kind of vehicle anyone would look twice at on the streets of Montana, which was exactly what they needed. As they drove into the night, Alex thought about the long road that had brought her here. 2 weeks ago, she had been Alexandra Blackwood, the revered billionaire, the fiancée of a handsome man she thought loved her. Now she was in hiding, running for her life, putting her trust in a strange farmer she had met only yesterday. Life was strange. "What are you going to do when all this is over?" she asked Ethan as they walked through a dense forest. Ethan was silent for a moment. "Go home. Try to save my farm, if you still can." "You will," Alex said, surprised by the certainty in her voice. "I have a feeling." Ethan smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "What about you?" "I'll do my job," Alex said. "My foundation, it's important. We were doing good things before Vincent tried to destroy it. I'll get it back on track." Ethan nodded, and Alex wondered if he thought she was naive, a rich girl with big ideals but no real-world experience. "I believe you can do it," he said finally.